Okay, welcome everyone to another AU Core Technical Design Group meeting, and in fact it is a ballot reconciliation meeting. We've got a few of those right throughout October. My name is Danielle Tavares-Wixon. I'll be chairing this meeting. I'm an AU Core co-chair, and Jamie will be taking the minutes for us today. I'll just check that Jamie's already online, so we have our scribe.
Yep, I'm here. Thank you.
Fantastic. All right, let's kick off. So I'd like to start with an acknowledgement of country, and that we acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands on which we gather today. And for me in Brisbane, that's the lands of the Turrbal and Yagara people. And we pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging, and extend our respects to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples. We acknowledge the First Peoples as the first scientists, educators and healers. Today's agenda will kick off, as it always does, with a bit of usual business and looking to approve the minutes of the last meeting, some of our updates and news, and it's that time of year that we need to do a poll on meeting times because daylight savings is about to kick in, so we need to go through that. And then the rest of the meeting is on ballot reconciliation. So we'll be reporting back the results of AU Core Block Vote 1 and 2, and then going through, and one item has actually been referred to Telecon out of AU Core Block Vote 2, and we'll go through that as well. And then we have the two issues that have been raised on AU Core Location, as well then going through one on identifier search parameters. And lastly, if we get time, we'll have a look at those last two around the request to in R1 look at limiting some of the available values for a couple of elements. And then we'll close out the meeting as we always do with talking about what's going to be in our next meeting. So we'll just go on now to what we need to start with, which is usual business and approval of the minutes. So I'll just bring that up on screen now. Make that a little bigger for people. So these are the minutes of our last meeting that were brought through. We have actually, you can see because there's a JIRA widget now for the decisions that we actually made, that in fact some of these have been applied already, which is fantastic, and that means the current integration build of AU Core includes in it those decisions that we made to remove must support and obligations from some of the elements in pathology result observation and diagnostic result observation. But yeah, so coming down, we've got our attendance list, of course, the slides, the Zoom, the summary of discussion, and the capturing of the decisions. Does anyone need more time to review these? Okay, I'm not hearing that. So I'll ask if anyone is happy to motion to approve these minutes.
I'm happy to motion, Joshi.
Thanks, Joshi. Is anyone happy to second approval of the minutes?
I'm happy to second, Jamie.
Thanks, Jamie. So what I'll do now is pop up our meeting poll when I can make it. There it is. Okay, I've launched that. So you should be seeing a meeting poll for approval of the minutes. If you weren't present at the last meeting, please feel free to abstain. I'm just going to let that run for a few more seconds. We've got the votes coming in quick, which is fantastic. All right, so I'm just going to count down because a couple more stragglers. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, I'm going to end that poll and I'll share the results. So you should be seeing that on your screen now. Overall, 18 people voted for affirmative, 0 voted negative, and 16 voted abstain. So that motion passes. The minutes are approved. Thank you, everybody. And we'll move on to our next piece of business. Okay, so updates and news. Now, in our last TDG meeting, we got an initial update from Kailin, who had sort of penciled in that maybe if they were ready, they would come back to this meeting to go through the early results from the clinical design group. Now, that needs to be postponed. So that they're not coming to this meeting to talk about that. But I do want to call your attention to the Sparked webinar that happened yesterday that had some of the really kind of early results that are coming through, including some of the perspectives from a number of clinical representatives around things like reason for encounter and patient summary. So that's there, and I think the link to that is being dropped in the chat, so you can see the recording from yesterday if you haven't seen it yet. And in terms of the AU patient summary project proposal, so that went to the firework group last week for approval. That has been approved by the firework group. So that's now with the board to consider endorsement of that. So we're waiting on the board to come back to us, and then we will go into where some of the next steps are from there. Okay, so let's talk Connectathon. You should have all gotten an email, I think, last week, maybe Friday, announcing the Connectathon that is going to be held in Melbourne on the 12th and the 13th of December. For those of you who were with us last year for the HL7 Australia Connectathon, same location, Melbourne Connect. And there is going to be an AU Core track. There's also going to be a Smart on Fire track and an AU e-requesting track. Now, the AU Core track will continue going through testing and testing coverage of AU Core. This time we're hoping for it to essentially be the normative R1 baseline, as in from the results of ballot reconciliation, have the snapshot ready that are all the normative changes we've essentially agreed, if any, to make to AU Core prior to publishing R1. So that's the intention, to bring that to the December Connectathon and just reconfirm the decisions we've made. And also looking at some basic patient summary test scenarios on top of AU Core data. So there were quite a few people at the Brisbane Connectathon who were starting to explore how to generate patient summary documents, whether that be on the client side and also on the server side of AU Core data. And that's something we want to continue exploring, and what that means for AU Core in the next Connectathon. Now, I will note, so a bit of a downer here. At the moment, the Connectathon is sold out. They may be releasing a couple of tickets, hopefully this week, but I can't confirm that. So if you want to go to the Connectathon and you don't already have a ticket, please email events@hl7.com.au to go on the wait list, so that any tickets that do become available, you can get one that way. Oops. Hang on, I think there's someone in the waiting room. Let me let them in. Okay. So that's that for announcements. Let's do daylight savings. Let's confirm the meeting times. So it starts this Sunday, which means our next meeting and right through until, I think it's April, there will be daylight savings kicks in for ACT and New South Wales and South Australia, Victoria and Tasmania. Someone might need to go on mute. Now, last year, we chose not to adopt daylight savings time when we did essentially our summer meetings. So what that meant was the time changed for ACT in New South Wales, etc., but it stayed the same for Queensland, Northern Territory and WA. So that's with us now again to confirm if that's what we want to continue doing, or if we actually want to change this year to move to start meeting on Australian Eastern Daylight Savings Time. So what I'm going to do is pop up a poll. But before I do that, can I just ask, any questions about what this would mean and how to read the options? All right, I'll pop up the poll now then. Just navigate back to the polls. Launch. Okay, so you should now be seeing a daylight savings poll. Got people coming in who are voting. So we've got about 33 people have voted so far. Just if you're not sure or you think it doesn't matter, feel free to click abstain. So just start counting down now around preferred timing on 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, I will end that poll. I'll share the results. Okay, so that's pretty overwhelming. 21 people have voted to retain the Australian Eastern Standard Time, which is what we did last year, and 4 people voted to change it, and 10 people have abstained. So we're going to retain our Australian Eastern Standard Time meeting going forwards. So I'll update the meeting invites. And so you're going to get an updated series of meetings from me this week, so that now comes into effect. I'll stop sharing. All right, so with that out of the way, unless there's a significant issue someone needs to raise, we can get into the business of talking about ballot, actually. So let's talk about where we are for our R1 ballot for the working standard. So just recapping for people, overall 108 issues this time have been submitted as ballot comments. The co-chair group is making their way through triaging those. They've triaged around 73%. We look like by the next AU Core Technical Design group, we'll have triaged 100% of those, which is excellent. And then we're bringing through the issues for the reconciliation by the technical design group. So of course, those ones that are out are things like duplicates or where they are invalid. So it's looking like there's about 92 issues that are relevant from a reconciliation perspective. And out of those that we've already made some decisions on, 8 of those are currently in the AU Core IG, the current build, including the ones that we decided in our last AU Core Technical Design group. Those are now all in the current build. So let's move on. You'll keep seeing this slide every time we have a ballot reconciliation meeting until we are 100% across the board. So let's talk about our meeting schedule just before we get into reconciliation at where we are. So we forecast doing essentially starting reconciliation in September and then intending to go through until the 31st of October. And it looks like overall there'll be 69 issues put into electronic votes or the meeting. We've had 2 meetings. So our first one on the 5th of September, we addressed 4 issues. And then last meeting, we went through and addressed 4 issues. This meeting, with the inclusion of 2 electronic block votes and what's on the agenda today, mean we're going to be looking at 21 issues. I'll also just draw people's attention to the 9th of October meeting for the firework group. I did send out an email about this, but there's a number of issues that have been raised, whether they were on AU base or AU Core or on AU e-requesting, that are actually about common parts. These are the editorial pages, really, that are shared across multiple IGs. And so those ones have largely been brought to this meeting to discuss. So that email was sent round about the list of issues. If you didn't get it, let me know and I'll forward you a copy. And so if you're interested, for any of those specific issues, please attend the meeting. And I think there's also a couple of issues that are particularly relevant to e-requesting because they deal with the AU-based profiles underlying like service request and coverage are also scheduled for that particular meeting. All right. And then we've got, we'll proceed with block votes and reconciliation to the end of October. So let's actually get into reporting back on the block votes. So the first one was AU Core Block Vote 1. That one in particular was about issues that had proposed to add the summary flag to elements in AU Core profiles. That was put out as non-persuasive. That has passed. So there are 18 affirmative. So these are the set of issues here. I encourage you, if you haven't gone through here to read what these were about, have been resolved as no change to AU Core. So this is now approved with 18 persuasive, 0 negative, 0 abstain. There was no refer to telecom or request to remove from this block. So let's go through AU Core Block Vote 2. So this one was about editorial and non-substantive. So it's looking at things around rewording for clarity, punctuation, and grammar. So if I just click through there, I think there are about 6 issues in this block. Looking at content on the guidance page, some introductory content on the terminology page, for example, and this has also been approved. There were 19 affirmative, 0 negative, and 0 abstain. There is one item that has been referred to telecom, which is this one. I'll now go back to the slides. So this is Fire 47179. Those of you who just don't remember, what does that JIRA number mean? That is the one on AU Variance Statement, should be moved out of AU Core and into a HL7 Australia policy document. So that's come to this meeting to discuss. And we're about to do that now, unless there are any questions or comments that something that people want to go through from the electronic votes. All right, let's get into it. So 47179. So this has been raised and it was originally in AU Core Block Vote 2. And that has been requested to be removed from Ruben, who has provided comment on that. And I think, Ruben, since you've added it to the JIRA, I'll actually just go to the JIRA so that people can see the, let me make that bigger. So the original request, and in fact, before I do that, sorry, everyone, I'll show you the page so that you can see what it is that is actually being discussed first. Just double check. Ruben, are you on the line? Is Ruben on the line?
I am. Can you hear me?
Oh, now I can. Yes, sorry, I couldn't hear you before.
No worries.
So I'm just going to show this page first. So this is the current, so this is in AU Core. It is under the guidance section. There is an AU Variance Statement page. There's also essentially the same page in AU e-requesting. And this is the current text, which makes statements essentially about the variance from base and has some preamble. And now I'll just move back to the JIRA. So this is the JIRA that was raised. Is that big enough for people, or should I make this bigger?
No, I think it's good enough.
All right, so here is the original request raised from Ruben, which is that the content in the variance statement belongs in a HL7 Australia policy document and not in an AU Core specification. what was put into the electronic vote is the proposed resolution description here. I'll let people read that instead of me reading it out. And then let me know if you need more time. There, Ruben has kindly provided the comments. Would you like to speak to this, Ruben?
Certainly. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. So I guess I should say when I first saw this page while I was going through the spec during the ballot, I think the top part of it, the preamble, really looked like those conformance requirements with should statements around AU Core are part of AU Core. It certainly comes across that way. But it's since reading the proposed disposition, it sounds like it's just repeating what's in the policy process. Now, that's fine, but I still think it's a problem having it there, specifically if that process changes, because then you're in a situation where you've got a source of this information in two different places, and that's never a good idea for policy. So I guess the first part of what I'm saying is I stand by my point that these things should be maintained in a policy document external to the spec. Yep, it's all that stuff. So that as things change, and invariably they do change, we may decide AU Core must be supported or something else. So that's the first point. But I think the bigger point here is I'm not sure what standing the AU variance policy or process has at the moment, who maintains it, who endorses it, who's responsible for changes. And that could well be a shared responsibility between the fire work group, the Australian Fire Coordination Committee, and the HL7 Australia board. So my recommendation here is actually that the board try and fix this. And I mean, I think it's good to have that variance policy. I just want it to be really well understood and well governed. So I would suggest that the board and Brett and I'm happy to volunteer to lead this with Brett and Andy to address this at the next board meeting, to give that process or policy some standing, and then that this issue be resolved such that a link to the policy is provided, and that the statement about there being no variances with AU base is retained in this page. So I guess that's where I'm going with this, Danielle. Happy to take questions.
Brett, your hand is raised.
Yeah, if you go refresh on those comments, I've just dropped some references in. So this was discussed and approved in the fire work group as a fire work group requirement for fire IG approvals. So there is a trail of discussion and a decision to include it as part of the assessments of the fire IG does. So as far as where it's come from, I mean, it's a fire work group created requirement that was passed down to the subcommittees, and is defined, and was discussed. The content was discussed at a couple of fire work group meetings and approved with a vote. So beyond that, I'm not sure why it needs in any other context, because it's basically a process introduced by the fire work group for the subcommittees.
It may well be that, Brett, but the process is actually putting a requirement on anything that's AU realm without defining what AU realm is.
Well, I think the thing to do would be to
Can I just point out though that because I don't necessarily want this to devolve into is the process okay, because that's not something the AU Core Technical Design Group can make a decision on. So I do think that we need to be careful around what we're asking this group, or what is in the remit of this meeting to be able to make a decision on. So yeah.
Yeah, that was going to be my suggestion as well. It basically, the definition and the execution of this, assessment of the content is up to the fire work group. So I think if there's any improvement or differences needed, I think it should be raised as fire work group work items, and we can look at it. And I think that also is related to the preamble content as well that's been displayed. We do say what must be present, but we don't say that is all that needs to be present on the variance statement. So I think, and I think there is, a need for some context. So yeah, I think as well, a fire IG is published at a point in time, so the rules are what they are at the point in time anyway. So there's some benefit, I think, to having the preamble there to put it in context. Yeah, so I might just leave it at that.
Ducey's hand's been up for a while.
That's all right. Thank you. I was just mostly going to agree with everything that's been said. I like the preamble text because I think it provides some context for the rest of the content in the page. So I think it's helpful to have something. And the other point is, yeah, I agree that this doesn't seem something that can be decided in AU Core TDG. So I'm just wondering if I can make a motion. No,
I think Stephen's got his hand still.
We'll just wait for
Okay,
Stephen to
all
make
right.
a comment, and then we'll come back to you, Ducey,
Okay.
if you're ready to motion.
I'll be
Stephen?
waiting.
Thank you. I just want to echo what Brett has said. I think that I acknowledge the point that policies should remain in policy documentations, and if policies changes, then we don't have to go back to make changes. But that argument misses the point that what we have seen here is what is being balloted, and if in future any policy changes, then the new policy would have to be applied, and then we'll have to discuss as to how it would be applied. So point number one that's being raised by Ruben, I think that is a moot point in the sense that the current ballot is those policies or preamble statements are valid to the current ballot, and that's what members are reviewing them on. So I'm comfortable with those statements to say there.
Okay, thanks, Stephen. Back with Ruben.
Look, I agree with the points here. I guess I'd be happier if the content was being repeated here for convenience. That's a fair point. But then I would like it asserted that it's referring to a particular version or publication date of the policy and process, so there can be no misunderstanding of what the prevailing policy is. And further to that, what I'd like to suggest, Danielle, rather than us coming up with a resolution here, if we could hold off on resolving this tracker item until I can have the opportunity to discuss this with the board, our next meeting is actually next Tuesday. I'm keen to get their perspectives on all of this, and ideally add some standing to what the fire work group has already agreed as the policy. I'm particularly interested in clarifying what we mean by AU realm, because believe it or not, AU realm could mean a number of things. It could be our specs, it could be specs developed through international for the AU realm, or it could be external ones. So
now, at this point, I will say I think the majority of what you said, Ruben, is excellent. But I caution the board. I caution this going to the board and then coming right back to this AU Core TDG. Like again, I feel that this is from the governing.
I agree.
At the firework group. So I
agree.
I am concerned about viewing this as an AU Core ballot issue instead of a procedural run around the governance process. I'd like us to have a way to raise and document that, and that be where that gets worked through.
So I'm suggesting it going from board to then fire work group and then back here, because depending on the outcomes of those other discussions, the resolution to this could be slightly different. It could be that all we need is a small editorial change, or we could need different text.
So what we've done in the past for this in AU Core is actually flag this as considered for future use, noting where and how the matter has been referred to the board, and that when advice comes back, we will reopen and make a change. That would be how we've done it for like the terminology kind of changes, or the other ones in the last ballot.
So if that means that it wouldn't go into version 1.0.0 of AU Core, then I wouldn't be supportive of that. I would actually like to get this matter resolved in the official first version of AU Core.
My worry with that, though, is that it doesn't sit with this group, and it is the board's decision. If the board decides that it's not going to address it in that time frame, will we like, or that it decides that nothing? Yeah, that really worries me.
So my understanding is that the ballot resolution needs to be done by the end of the month. I'm fairly confident we can get this landed by the board and back here before then.
Any other comments before we ask, I guess, if there are questions before we look to see if there's enough understanding of the issue that a motion could be made around a disposition? All right, hearing none, I will ask for who wants to make a motion and what that motion would be.
I make a motion to defer resolution of this tracker item to the next AU Core meeting.
So so you want to just move this to the next work group meeting for us? Okay. Does someone want to second that?
Andy, I'll second it.
Okay, Andy will second that. Any other comments or questions while I'm finding the poll? Oh, hang on, there's a hand up. Sorry.
I have that was me, Doshi. I have a question. Because if the board is going to make a decision, I think that then needs to go to fire group. Because I'm not sure if the board will be deciding on the exact text or preamble text and everything else. And I still think it needs to go to the fire group, and the decision needs to be made in the fire group, and then it trickles down to AU Core and AU requesting. So I'm not really clear on what other discussion we can hold in AU Core in the next TDG meeting following the board decision.
Going by my calendar, board meets Tuesday, can make a decision. Fire work group meets Wednesday to consider that decision and do any sort of ensuing actions. And at that point, we may then have enough to go with at the next AU Core meeting. Now, if the board
that's what I'm unclear on, because I think the requirements for AU Core and AU requesting are coming from fire group. So I'm not really sure I'm clear on the point of if the board and fire group.
Dushi, that we can't put resolve or put the statement anyway here, that the one voting on the change has to be the firework group?
Yes, I think so.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think, yeah.
Sorry, I have a lot of ambient voice, so I wasn't able to hear what Lubin said clearly. What exactly are we asking the board to decide on? Are we asking the board to decide on the preamble text, the policy, or what exactly are we expecting the board to make a decision that is binding on the fire work group itself?
So the board will decide on they will review the process as currently defined and establish what the governance for that process is going forward.
So how is that going to impact on the preamble statements that we in the first bullet point that you are talking about?
Well, as an example, and I'm not suggesting that the board will make this decision, but they might seek to clarify what they mean by AU realm. So if
Is
a
there
change to the
is there ever any doubt about what AU realm means?
absolutely.
I will beg to differ.
Well, I will agree to disagree. Regardless, the process needs governance, is my contention, and it won't be a difficult step for the HL7 Australia board to establish what that is. That's what we're there for.
Okay, I think the points at this point, sorry, are clear. Ruben's making the statement that the process itself needs governance and that we should wait to make any determination about what happens in AU Core and bring that back to this group after that goes through other groups. I think that Dushi and Stephen are saying that that this is not AU Core's business anyway, that you're right about the governance content, and that any changes to preamble or otherwise would just come through direct directions from the board or the fire work group, and therefore don't need to be this kind of decision, because we should just be accepting what they say. I think those are the points that are being made. If there's no other, if I've not misinterpreted that, I think we should move to the vote now. We still have the motion from Ruben and the second from Andy. So I'll put up that poll there. So we'll just reconfirm that the motion is to defer more discussion on this topic to the next AU Core Technical Design Group. And their understanding is that Ruben will take this to the board in the meantime. So I will launch the vote for the current motion. So please vote affirmative if you want to discuss this again in a fortnight. Vote negative if you do not want to hold the discussion in a fortnight in this technical design group.
Sorry, Danielle, I just want to clarify. The motion was for these issues to be passed on to the board. I think there are two components.
No, that's not it.
The motion is simply to delay or had discussed this issue again in a fortnight.
Okay.
I hope no one who's voted already had the same interpretation as Stephen did.
Well, that's what I thought you said.
Yeah, sure. And yeah, we probably should have been a bit more clear, but did anyone else have the same interpretation as Stephen? Because we may want to redo the vote.
I'm not hearing anything. If you are, please speak up or put your hand. Sorry, Dushi?
I was just going to say, can I make a counter motion? When is the time? Should I then done that before the voting or after?
Yeah, usually before the voting.
Before, yes.
Yeah, sorry.
That's it. That's fine. Okay. We've got 34 people who have voted, so I'll do the countdown.
Hang on, sorry. Danielle, I haven't seen any voting popping up on my screen. So have I missed something?
So you will have then. It may be depending on how you've logged in, you may not see the poll. If you've logged in using a HL7 account, it's not there, so you'll have to plus one.
I saw your previous poll for the approval of the meeting minutes, but this one I haven't seen it at all.
Can you either state your vote verbally or put it in the chat?
No, I will state it verbally that I oppose.
Okay. Are there any others who need to make their vote verbally? All right, so I'll end that poll in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So I'm ending that poll and I'm sharing the results. So including Stephen, affirmative is 13, negative is 7, and abstain is 16. So I think the motion passes. So we will be bringing this particular item to the meeting in a fortnight. So that's, I believe, the 17th of October. All right.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's get to the other items that are scheduled for today. So starting with the first two that are around location, and I'll hand over to you, Landon. Did you wish to share your screen, or would you like to just tell me what you want me to click on?
I'll try to share my screen.
Right, I will stop sharing.
Hey, can you see my screen? Hey, I'm sorry, share button.
Yes, we can see it now.
Awesome, thank you. My name is Landon Riley from Best Practice Software and AU Core co-chair. So I'm going to go through two tickets, mostly around must support or around must support. So for this first ticket, I might actually just load this ticket up. This ticket was raised by Heath, and it is based on a must support remove of location mode. There were points raised questioning the usage of location mode in the Australian context. I believe the main point was most systems don't distinguish between kind and instance, making mode redundant as must support. I'll give everyone a few seconds to read that. Okay, might jump back over to the slides. So what I might do now is show the R4 value set so everyone can get across what this one actually, or how it reads in the definition. So for location mode, for instance, it's defined as a specific instance of a location, e.g. operating theater, and kind is a class of locations or could be constrained to a specific boundary, organization, parent location, address, etc. So these are the two types of location modes and their associated R4 definitions. But go back to the slide. AU Base also talks to usage nodes and its usage, and I'll quickly show that as well right now. So noting here, the guidance in AU Base is when defining a type of mobile or remotely delivered service location, the location mode should be sent as kind. So this is the guidance from AU Base. And this is all just for context with the upcoming disposition. So where we kind of landed is for this disposition that must support should be removed as its usage is not common in an Australian context. And this aligns to US Core and AU provider directory, which also does not have location mode as must support. But what I'd like to do now is confirm that, and I'd like to open up for comment. Does anyone currently use location mode? Or do they see its usage important for Exchange? Does anyone have any comments and would like to raise their hand? Rachel.
Rachel?
Yeah, thanks, guys. Yeah, just confirming that the Provider Connect Australia Fire IG does use it just purely to for alignment with the guidance that's currently in AU Base for defining mobile or remotely delivered services. So, yeah. So we only use kind, mode equals kind for locations that are, yeah, mobile or virtual.
Great, thank you very much. Is there any comments from anyone else? So
I was just wanting to double check the definition of location mode again.
definition of, beg your pardon, sorry.
Of the location, like location mode, you said it was like, it could be a movable location or something.
So yeah, location mode, these are the R4 definitions here.
Yeah, so
Well, it refers to things like, the mobile, like blood banks, for example, which go around for blood collection, or ambulances, or all sorts of things where the location is still, or that place where an encounter might take place is represented as a location, but it's mobile. It changes its specific geographical positioning over time.
yeah, and the mode itself, the mode element is just whether that location represents a specific location or a class of locations.
Brett, you have your hand
So
up.
at the time of the collection of the data, this was the location. So at the event that this was happening, this was the location of the event.
Yes.
Thank you.
I mean, mode gives you some
That's one
categorized information around it, yes, and well, mode just tells you instance or type, and then you would use other fields to represent other kinds of information. That's if you needed to distinguish between whether or not the location requires this element to actually distinguish that. Often it's quite obvious.
Yeah.
Anyway.
And yeah,
Sorry,
look,
Brett.
the use of the location resource, I think, a specific scenario would be the location in which an event or an encounter occurred, or whatever it might be. But in some cases, it just purely represents like administrative information, like the location of a practice or a facility or whatever, independent of any other resources. So, yep.
It's like you're trying to figure out where all the places this mobile blood bank or whatever is going. You could schedule all these points, these locations, which is different to saying, well, why did you schedule all those locations? Oh, because it's a moving location. I'm just working through the scenarios, I guess.
Brett,
Look,
sorry, go ahead.
I can only speak to the use of the location resource within Provider Connect Australia, where it's we model if a healthcare provider organisation has something like a mobile blood bank, for example. We don't model the places that mobile blood bank goes to. We simply model the mobile blood bank as a mobile location where healthcare services are provided within, regardless of where that van is travelled to or from or anywhere else. But that's the PCA specific use case for the use of location. And yeah, obviously this is a specific instance of a location in our case, but yeah.
Thanks, Rachel. Brett, do you have further comments to that?
Yeah, just I think we are in a point in development where most of the things we're talking about in AU Core are instance locations, because usually it's events that we've recorded. It's related to that. But I think as we move into planning and perhaps some other things, it becomes using kind becomes a bit more common, I think. So whilst if we don't use it now and don't require it, the question is, will it become a burden later if you're storing locations of either kind? Do you want to filter on this kind of concept is probably the question, because there's no default for this value. Yeah, if it's unstated, you just really won't know. So you might need to use other methods to decide if the location is useful. But if you think the primary way of using location is by reference anyway from other things, it may not be such a big deal. So that was just some context. Yeah.
Okay.
Apologies, I lost the mute button. Sorry about that. Okay, so yep, you've gone back to that. Thanks, Landon. If there are no other comments or questions, I think we can move to a motion.
Can I just confirm that the guidance within AU base then would be updated, the usage notes, or not?
I don't see, this doesn't impact AU base. This is only about removing the must support flag from AU core. So what the proposed JIRA is, if you can go back to that, Landon, the 47104 is proposing that actually.
So it's just removing must support.
Just
it
removing.
is.
Yes, correct. So it's purely removing.
The guidance in AU base still applies to
Yes.
AU4.
Correct.
It's only guidance as well, and for specific uses. Yeah.
All good. Thank you.
Okay, any other comments or questions? All right, is someone happy to make a motion on this?
I'm happy to make the motion that we remove must support on location mode.
And I'll
Thanks,
second
Andy.
it. That's Heath.
Thanks.
I'll second. I was too slow to motion it.
Thanks, Heath.
I'll
Okay.
just go to second it too, Heath.
All right, I will relaunch that poll for the current motion. So you should see that now. If you don't see a poll coming up now, I'd like you to call out your vote. Okay, votes coming in first. So if you approve removal of must support, please vote affirmative. If you're against that, vote negative. If you are unclear, please vote abstain. Or if you're unable to make a decision at this point. All right, I'm going to count that down now in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And I will end that poll. I see someone in the chat has abstained. All right, so I'll share the results. What we have, taking into account the vote in the chat, is 23 have voted affirmative, 2 have voted negative, and 10 have voted to abstain. So that motion passes. We will now be removing must support for that element in AU Core R1. I'll stop sharing. Okay, please go to the next one, Landon.
Great, thank you very much. You can still see my screen? Yes.
Yep.
Perfect, awesome, thank you. So this next one is also must support. And I'll go to the item also raised by Heath. So this ballot item raises concerns around location identifier element being marked as must support in AU Core. The main arguments being the LSPN is rarely used and a NADA site number applies to niche laboratory use cases. It suggests this identifier might be more relevant for downstream implementation guides rather than AU Core. So the recommendation of this ballot item is to remove location identifier from being must support in AU Core due to its limited applicability. And there was also comments made below around the fact that location identifier is not must support in US Core or IPS. So we'll go back to the slides. This is just a summary on the slides and how it currently sits. So when I ended up having a little bit of trouble deciding on a preferred disposition for this ballot item. My organization best practice uses the LSPN for Medicare billing. So we can exchange this identifier, but I suspect we might be in the minority. So because of this, here I've provided two options. One is persuasive and one is non-persuasive. So I'll give a quick summary and then we might have a conversation and work out where the group's thinking. So the persuasive one is that it's not commonly used across most contexts. The must support requirement should be removed, consistent with US Core and the AU provider directory. And the non-persuasive one, the nationally recognized location identifiers are useful for some workflows like Medicare billing and should remain as must support. So with that, what I might do is throw out a question to the group. Is LSPN and NADA site numbers known? And are these identifiers important to be exchanged and or should be must support? What is the group's thinking there? Does anyone have any comments?
I can make a comment, I guess. From Sonic's point of view, we output NADA numbers in results, and we also, so when we output a result, the sending facility, like Sullivan Canales, is identified by a NADA number, and when we get orders in, the barcode, the facility that the order has come from tends to be the Medicare minor customer ID, which I think is the LSPN, but it's not 100%. So we need a facility code, and often people use the Medicare minor customer ID. I don't know how that helps this decision, but that's two use cases I know they're used by us.
Brett?
I think whilst these identifiers might be present, I'm not really seeing. I mean, the usage is specific, like for Medicare or for specific workflows. So I kind of think it's not that important for AU Core in identifying the party in this context. So I think if you're in a reporting spec or a Medicare related requirement, that would be definitely important and probably required. But I don't know if we need to have it here.
All right.
I
Thanks,
guess. So, sorry, I can't seem to find my hand up icon, but I guess I use location identifier all the time, and looking at PHN data, whether I'm talking about an area or a site. So to see it whenever
What kind of, just question there, David, what kind of identifier is used in that context?
I guess when I get an external feed, someone's going to refer to an area with some identifier, rather than talking about, I don't know, let's make one up here, like, some grouping, a grouping of suburbs, or
so that refers to a location rather than like an organization?
That's right. So that's half the challenge, isn't it? Because in the data systems themselves, they describe the primary health network as sometimes as an organization and sometimes as a location. And so I guess I'm just trying to be very specific to try and get them to think about it as first the organization, but then when they want to switch around and talk about an area context, that they can do that as well.
Rachel?
Yeah, sorry, I was just going to give a little perspective from the directory, the directory side of things. So Provider Connect Australia does issue their own identifiers for locations. Those identifiers are also fed through to the National Health Services Directory, which also surface those to their downstream systems integrated with the NHSD along with the LSPN. But as per Brett's comment, I don't believe that necessitates making it must support in AU Core.
Okay, thanks, Rachel. Heath?
Yeah, exactly. That basically they're downstream IGs, the directory, and also I think even with David's scenario and sounding, if I'm interpreting correctly, that's a little bit the actual identifier that David's perhaps referring to is not even one of these that is standardized, so it's even more so localized. So no one's stopping us to use the identifier. It's just that we don't saying that it's must support at this point in time, and along with its obligations. So that's the key here. I think is it's probably very early. And also to Angus's point, Angus talks about a minor ID. And when I spoke to Landon about this one, doesn't seem like the LSPN is the same identifier in best practice as what you're talking about, Angus. So again, I think coming around that we just don't seem to have ubiquitous use of these location identifiers yet. I think there's a lot of work to be done. And then data is obviously very specific to pathology reports results. So that's hence the reason I've raised this issue. So, I mean, I would be in favour for this being persuasive.
So would you like to make a motion, Heath?
Can I just,
Unless there are any other comments or questions. Oh,
yeah,
Michael.
I can't raise my hand. There's no button in Zoom for
Gotcha.
some reason. I just want to make sure that we understand too what the actual obligations on this must support. So it's currently a optional 0 to many cardinality, and the obligation is populate if known and no error. So we've got a very low bar on the must support here. Just making sure we're not actually, the must support doesn't say it's mandatory, it's only populate if known. So,
but the problem there is the bar is actually higher. Perhaps it's not so high.
if you have one, provide it. If you don't have one, don't provide it.
Yeah, but the requester has to support it, but only by a no error scenario.
And no error,
so,
yeah.
Which is pretty low. But again, I think I mean, to the other option 3 that I think we might have talked about, this has gone back a little while, Landon, and correct me if I'm wrong, we did talk about removing it off of identifier and putting it on specific slices for each of these individual identifiers.
Yes.
LSPN in particular is probably the use case that is more ubiquitous, or perhaps one that we would want to become more ubiquitous. But again, that's coming back to that probably more of a provider directory requirement, more so than a AU core. So many different use cases around locations, including things like ward numbers and room numbers and, all sorts of stuff. It's just, so many use cases for location. I just don't think that we've got common enough scenarios here.
Heath, given what Michael just said, I'm struggling with what the problem is. Like, if you have it, give it. If you don't need to give it.
Because then there's an obligation to give it if you don't want to give it.
Is that a
It's
problem?
extra work. Well, it's more work for a developer to do it. Because they're now obligated to do so. Even if there's no use case for it, we're now obligated to provide it just because I have it.
If you have it, you obviously have a use case in your own system for it.
Yeah, but that might be a billing use case. But I might be now sending it out for a a patient summary use case. Do you see what I mean? Like, location can be used in so many different use cases, but the actual use of this particular identifier may be for a very specific use case, and hence has no value downstream for patient summary or something more generalized.
Any other comments or questions?
Just what Michael was saying there. I mean, we use the LSPM, but it's already in the system, right? So we don't need to receive it from anybody, I guess. Potentially a valuable point. Yeah.
Right. Any other comments or questions? Okay. As chair, I will make one statement on this about the potential content. I believe the issue is that with populate if known, that means that every time you supply a location, the responder is obligated to send any and all known identifiers, regardless of the use case, every time. And I guess that's what Heath is getting at. And the same would apply if we put must support on LSPN or not a site number. The question is it acceptable to require that every and any time a location information is shared, that LSPN must always go with it if you have LSPN information, which is what populate if known would mean.
And as you said, even if you've got an identifier that is not one of these two, you also always have to do it because you've got one.
So with that being said, who would like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that this is persuasive to remove identifier as must support.
I'll second
Is
it.
anyone?
Andy.
Andy is happy to second. Are there any other comments or questions while I find the poll again? Okay, I will now relaunch the poll for the current motion, which is to remove must support and obligations from location identifier in AU Core R1. All right, we've only got 70% of people who've voted. Again, if you can't find the voting option, please just either put it in the chat or verbally call out what your vote is. All right, I'm going to count that down in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and I will end poll. Okay, and I'll share the results. So 26 have voted affirmative, 2 have voted negative, and 9 have abstained, which I think might actually be a record low for us. So that motion is carried. So for R1, we will be removing must support and obligations from location identifier. Right, I'll stop sharing that poll.
Thank you.
And I think I will take sharing over again to move through those other items. Let me just get to the right slide.
Yep.
Share screen. Where are we? Okay, let me know when you can see that.
Yep.
Fantastic. Okay, so we've done the first two. That was persuasive. This one has also resulted in persuasive. We will be undertaking that. Next one is identify search parameters, shall specify system. So let's go to that one. Okay, so this one was raised by Heath, and Heath is on the line, so that's very helpful. And it's about specifying system. There's quite a lot of text here. So Heath, do you want to summarize? If you're speaking, you're on mute.
Trying to find the mute button. From memory, I think that the crux of this particular issue is that hang on, can I just see the title of the issue again? Sorry. Okay. So identifiers for things like location, practitioner roles, practitioners, organizations, we've got multiple identifiers types. So we've got our local, our national identifiers and potentially other ones. So take organization, we've got an ABN. Now we use the system to differentiate those different identifiers. So if systems are storing those identifiers as separate fields in their database, and as it's currently stated, if a search parameter for, say, identifier only includes the value of the identifier itself, it needs to go look in both the ABN field and the HPIO field to determine whether it's got a matching number. So hence why I am suggesting that we always provide a system in a identifier search parameter value. So it's always going to be, this is an ABN, and this is the ABN value, this is the HPIO, this is the HPIO value. Currently it's only...
Did you want me to go, is this a sufficient page, so demonstrating this for people, the difference between displaying, including the system versus just providing a number, whatever number it is, but you may not know what that is without the system.
Exactly. And probably more importantly on this page is the definition up at top, where we say the requester shall provide at least a code value and should provide both system and code. What I'm talking about here is changing that to shall provide both the system and code. And I'm just looking at the responder. Yeah, the responder is a shall on both already. So it's really changing the requester shall always provide a system and a code. And that's basically makes the example number 2 invalid. It will always be example number 1.
Going back to, not this one, this one. Yes, here it is. So that's what this is proposed is at this point. I think that's the summary of what you are asking for.
And it should be noted that we've already got this in patient identifier. We already say it's a shall, both system and code in patient. So this is really aligning it with patient as well for these 4 resources: location, organization, practitioner, and practitioner role. Interestingly, we've just removed identifier. I don't know if that means that with identifier, no search parameter gets removed from location, but that's not not part of this scenario.
So Brett, your hand is raised.
Yeah, I was kind of a fan of this, but I'm just, there's one, is this a hard requirement on the requester to always supply a system? Because what happens in the general case, and this is not what AU Core is covering, but if somebody wants to use GUIDs to do lookups or another mechanism that doesn't require a system, are we preventing that?
That's a interesting question. I guess it probably makes it.
There is a system provided by Fire for GUIDs. I'm not saying that it wouldn't not make it harder, but it's technically, just wanted to say, feasible. Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
I can't think of. I mean,
it's a bit edgy.
Why would we? Yeah, it's edgy. I don't know why we would be doing it, to be honest. But I can understand your hypothetical question. It will make it more difficult, but I think what we're talking about here is more realistic scenarios of local identifiers and national identifiers.
Yeah, I think that's fine. I think I can live with that, and I'll go and investigate what Danielle just said, because maybe that's the answer. Yep. Cool. Thanks.
I think it's an RFC or something or other, but there is a system.
Yeah, there's a Fire fixed system for all GUIDs.
Okay, that's good. I'm happy. Thank you.
Andy?
Does this mean for these artifacts, we need to constrain them so that identifiers cannot be used that don't have a system? Or are we then just saying, if you do decide to add an identifier without a system, then it's unsearchable?
it would be non-compliant if you didn't provide a system. And
Why
it
is
would
that?
be because we've said it's a shall. So it's all about conformance. So it would be in the right of the server to respond with an error, to say your non-compliant request, bad request.
But that's for the search. What I'm saying is, say for location, if we have added an identifier to an AU core location that doesn't include a system, then we're saying that the search is now constrained. You can't search for that identifier.
Well, that's Brett's scenario, I guess, or an example of Brett's scenario. But
I guess they're saying if we're going to do this, then I think we would have to constrain identifiers on those nominated artifacts to not.
I believe, and Danielle, you might be able to help me here, whether I'm right or wrong, that there is some preference, if not stronger than just a preference, that a system is always provided with a value in an identifier type. I can't remember what the constraint is, but I think there's certainly some recommendations around that. I'd have to go search for it in the standard.
AU Core Patient has some rules on it. None of the other resources, so the ones under discussion, do. Beyond where we've actually said, if it is one of these types, you need to represent it this way, which means they'll all have systems. But going to Andy's point, it is valid and allowed to have an identifier without a system. Fire defines a very specific meaning for what that is. Let's hope the go-to works. Here it is. So here, I think it's probably better text in R5, but let me find the bit about what it means if you don't supply the system value, because it is allowed.
But do you have to have a type instead?
No, it is perfectly legal to just have a value. It means here, in some cases, the system might not be known, only the value is known. And so essentially when it's absent, since it's optional, it's treated like missing data, as in I only know the value, I don't know the system. And no, you're not required to have a type. AU Core, if we thought that was part of the minimum requirements, would have to add something around that.
And I guess the case where you know the assigner, but you don't know what the system is.
So the last sentence there is application should provide a system wherever possible.
Yes.
Yeah, because why would you? Yeah, that's right. So someone could give you an identifier and not tell you the system, but then you don't know how to use the identifier.
And also just here, Brett, there's the good thing. Okay, so we've identified what the request is, and that what this would mean would be either two implications, I think, that Andy proposed, that either you would not be able to therefore find identifiers without systems, because you're always saying this identifier inside a system, unless you'd decided it or done some other logic on your end about something special. But we may also, if we put this in place, be trying to state that AU Core, in fact, you should always have a system and a code, and that in the AU Core context, it is never meaningful to not know the system. That was also raised. I think at this point, I need to ask, do we have further comments or questions, or do we feel like we could make a motion at this point?
Or any friendly amendments or something, wherever.
Millie, your hand's raised?
Yeah, I just remembered something from the spec. We're currently implementing token search at Halo, and so we've been looking at this. I'll just throw a link in chat if that's the wrong link. Sorry. I'm just looking at the token search spec, and I wondered if this would conflict or change the interpretation of a section. So in the list there where it says parameter equals code, parameter equals system code, etc. Obviously the first option there is a code irrespective of system, and the third option is a code with no system property. I was just trying to work through how this change would affect those lines in particular.
We would state that an AU core requester can only ever submit this, basically.
Yeah. So it would wipe out a lot of the complexity of this, which from an implementation point of view would be very nice. I've seen engineering's logic to implement this entire thing, and it's quite crazy.
So I think Andy's scenario where there's no system would actually be supported by that third dot point and satisfy our compliance.
Except your proposal is to not allow this as a search. It's currently that. That's what's currently in AU Core, is it is legal to just provide code, and the current change request under discussion is to say that no, every time you will do system encode.
It's the first one that we're disallowing. The second one has a system that has no system. So it's actually the two part. It actually has a null system, not no system.
But if you don't provide the system parameter, you're only providing the code parameter. I guess then in that case, you would be providing the...
It says an identifier has no system, and that's Andy's scenario.
But if we mandate system and code, that's what's here.
But that is the system.
It's the null system.
Yeah.
This is the first one is the maximal set. So it's both things with codes and without code, well, with systems and without systems. Whereas the second one is only systems, and the third one is only no systems. So the first one is a combination of the second two.
So we wish to allow, just to confirm, that these two.
Yes, but I see the third one as having a system, but that system just happens to be null.
Okay. Looking at the time, we need to move this forwards. Are there any other comments or questions before we go to a motion, understanding, Heath, that you are going to make a motion that is going to be around these two?
I can make that motion.
Okay,
so
please.
Heath, are you saying that the fourth one is not in scope?
It's currently not in scope in AU Core.
I don't know what the fourth one means.
I don't know what the code is, but I know what the system of the code is.
I assumed that was return everything that has this system, like has a value for the system.
Agree.
I think that seems reasonable, and that would still satisfy the requirement, the conformance, because there is literally a system and a code. There just happens to be a null code.
There's an argument to be made, is a null thing a thing? And yeah, okay. Well, you'll have to
Sorry, I'm
make
using the
the
wrong
motion.
word. An empty code. I don't know how you want to proceed.
Last one's not an empty code.
It's any code. Yeah.
Any code. Yeah.
It is tangential, and maybe I need to make a ticket for this, but I'm wondering if guidance in AU Core for how this kind of thing applies, if we make this kind of change, would be helpful.
I think it is second and third. So what I'm actually proposing is the second and third dot points. It's not any code. It is you must provide a system and a code, and the second one is really that there is no system on your identifier.
Okay. Would you like to try to word that motion?
Well, I think from a wording perspective, I would like to stick with what we've got, which is just that code and system is shall be provided.
I don't think that matches this. I
Well,
don't
that's
think
up
emptiness
for
after that
interpretation.
is, because that is the name of a part. And if you say both code and system, that would match only the syntax of this, because that's what the square brackets indicate.
But an empty string system will not match a system that has a value. So that's why I don't mind the second one, whereas the third one has a completely different meaning.
Millie? Sorry.
Apologies. One last potential hurdle. There are two systems in identifiers. There's the outer one in the identifier itself, and there's the inner one with the code in the inner coding.
You're talking about type?
Yeah, just
So
looking at this would be the inner one, or is it both systems, or?
This would be like IHI system, IHI. So this would say, find me every patient that just has an IHI. And I'm not going to tell you which IHI.
There's probably there's no search parameter for the inner one, for the type, unless we create one.
Yes.
Would that not pull from either system in an identifier?
No.
No.
Oh, okay.
The parameter is, no, it doesn't. The parameter of identifier only goes to a specific fire path, and it'll only go to identifier.system, not identifier.type.system.
Okay, good to know. That solves that question. Thank you.
So we're about to hit time, actually. So what we'll do is we will continue this discussion in the next meeting. So I'm going to stop there. And we will come back, and one of the first points of call after the other deferred one is to come back to this one and to word that motion and hold the vote. So thanks, everyone. We will also have some block votes coming out this afternoon that will be open this week, this coming week through to next week. So if I just go to that, we've got 2 block votes coming out, 1 on substantive changes to vitals and measures, and 1 on further informative changes, so guidance page, cert parameters, profiles and extensions page. And then we'll look to make some decisions on the 17th. So I'll see you then. Thanks, everyone, for today.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.